All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live. Tonight is January 24th, and this marks the third episode of PA DECA's #Evolve Competition Prep Series. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, Teja Swain. He will be our District 4-5 representative in the coming year, and it is fantastic that we can have him on tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to do the intro thing and we're going to get started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Max Lucas, and tonight I'm hosting PA DECA's #Evolve Competition Prep Series, Episode 3, entitled Pursue. To those of you joining us tonight, the topic we will be discussing is test taking. We've got a guest speaker and we'll be talking about everything you need to know to succeed on your test at your state level conference. So just as a quick refresher, we're going to go over what Evolve is. So Evolve is PA DECA's innovative new competition prep series that provides our association members with what they need to succeed at the state level as well as the international competition level. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Trayvon, and he's going to talk about what we offer as a series.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trayvon Bradshaw, and I'm your State Vice President of Communications. So again, like Max said, I'm just going to go over a few of the #Competition Prep Series Evolve episodes that we are doing for the future, as well as some we have done in the past that you guys can still tune into on our YouTube channel. All you have to do is click the search button and type in Pennsylvania DECA and go under our playlist for the competition prep series. So first, we did Ignite, which was an introductory video all on the #Evolve series and how it can help you make the stage at states and ICDC. Following that, we did a episode called Bright, which is all on planning out your written events, which highlighted some of the important topics that were important while planning out your written event, which was the executive summary, the materials and promotion, as well as the overall performance and presentation. Following that, we are doing Pursue tonight, which is on the test taking strategies and just giving you a whole feel for that. And it's great because you have to be well-rounded in DECA. You have to know both the knowledge or test part as well as the performance or role play. So after Pursue, next week we are doing Soar, which is on individual role plays, in which we will do a video analysis of how to do a proper role play and kind of go into the major tips that will help you guys to be successful within your performance. And the week after, we will be doing our next episode called Compose, which is how to excel in your team event and role play, and kind of just compare and contrast the individual from the team, which will help you to narrow down, what you're better at. Are you an individual type competitor or are you a team competitor? And that's very important to understand about yourself. Which kind of competition will you be successful in? After Compose, we are doing Shine, which is all on to prepare for states. So you guys will be able to actually hear from your state officer team, because we will be in Hershey at that point on February 21st, what competing at states will all be like, maybe some of the stuff you should pack and bring with you for states, and just overall give you a good feel of everything we've talked about in the Evolve series. So after states concludes, we are doing one more called Achieve, which is all on how to make the stage at ICDC, which will be another great episode for us. So,
all right. Thanks, Trayvon. Next, Trayvon's going to talk a little bit about the test breakdown and some of the factors that that apply in test and how our individual association members can achieve success within.
Yes, Max. So I'm just going to go over some facts and general knowledge that you guys need to know to be successful within your competitive event. So first things first, 1/3 of your overall score, both the performance as well as the knowledge part, will be on that DECA test. So it's important, like I said before, to be a well-rounded competitor. You want to be a performance type competitor as well as a test-taking competitor. So we're going to say this a lot, but practice, practice, practice makes perfect. So after that, just stay calm and confident. I know sometimes it can be hard, especially if you're a first-year member. It can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking experience having to go through that test, but we are going to give you some expert tips of how to stay calm, which in a result will make you confident. After that, we have just read each question slowly and go over them, and don't get too overwhelmed with it. If it's getting too much and it's taking too much time, just move on. And 40% of your test is business administration, so it's typically just general knowledge type deck of questions that you can answer. So again, just go in and do the very best that you can possibly do. You want to make sure that you have all your testing materials. So everything from pencils to calculators, scrap paper. We'll go over more of those materials later. And show up 15 minutes early so you can be settled. As you know, DECA time is 15 minutes early, and if you show up on time, you are late. So
Cool.
that is test take break or DECA test breakdown.
Very well put, Trayvon. Next, we're going to talk about mental preparation because, as many pros might say, mental preparation is as important as physical preparation. Where you are mentally when you take a test is key. Science proves that if you're not in a strong mental place when you're taking a test, you're likely to see negative results. So some of the advice we have as professional test takers and individuals who have been within DECA for a long time so one example, one thing that I do consistently at every single competition I attend is talk to a competitor before the test. Typically what I'll do is I'll go sit down in my testing section. I'll look next to me, find the person next to me, shake his hand, say, "How do you do? My name is Max Lucas." And I'll just start asking questions about him. I'll be like, "Where do you live?" "Oh, cool. You live in Washington? That's nice. Nice to meet you. So what's it like in Washington? Where do you want to go to school? What's going on with your life?" And before you know it, we're friends and the test has come around and neither of us are in a negative headspace and both of us are for the better. Another thing to keep in mind when you're prepping and worrying about your mental preparation is sleep is a key factor in success. No matter what you think you're capable of getting away with, there's science to prove that if you don't get 8 hours of sleep a night, it'll negatively affect your life. So even we've all been there. We've all been cramming for tests and end up getting 1 or 2 hours of sleep and then just bomb the test the next day. And so no matter how much time you want to spend studying, remember that if you get the 8 hours, you will be doing better. Another thing that's important to do is to give yourself a pep talk. A lot of times your own worst enemy will be you. It's easy to get into your head and be scared and be nervous about a test. But what I want each and every one of you who are tuned in and watching us tonight to do is when you get nervous about your event, realize, hey, there's only a finite number of people that have also tuned into the Competition Prep Evolve series and watched because they truly care. And likely I'm the only one in my event who did that. And that right there is a massive leg up on all of your competition. So if you ever get nervous, just remember, you prepped more than them. You're for better. Another thing to keep in mind is it's important to be well rehearsed and well versed in the knowledge that you need to know beforehand. This generally goes for everything in life, but if you don't know stuff, how are you going to be able to succeed with it? If you don't study for a test, you're going to fail. That's just how it is. So study, try and get as much information as you can into your brain, and just do the best you can with what you have. And remember, it's just a test. It won't matter in 2 years. It won't matter in 3 years. So just breathe and keep everything in proportion. So next, we're going to have Trayvon talk a little bit about the testing materials you're required to bring.
All right, guys. So once again, I'm on, and I'm just going to talk about some simple things that you guys will need to bring with you for this test. So first thing you will need is pencils. You're going to need those pencils, those writing materials to put in on the Scantron. And when you come to the state conference, you're going to see many people campaigning for state office who will hand out different promotional materials such as pencils, but you guys want to be those competition experts to come in prepared and have your own stuff ready, and just be the type of competitor to kind of support yourself and be prepared for any situation. You never know if there's going to be a shortage of anything, and you want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to fulfill this test. So following that is a simple 4-function calculator. So in a lot of competitions, you might think you won't need a calculator, there won't be math involved, but there are certain competitions in which you will need a calculator. And again, you want to be prepared for any situation that is thrown at you. So especially if you're in a finance cluster type test, you want to make sure to have that calculator in case you have some problems that you need to solve. After a calculator, just some scrap paper, something to write your ideas down, or maybe if you're contemplating two different answers that you might want to put down, you could put like the pros and cons, or you could just kind of weigh out the different answers and which makes more sense to you. And then finally, just have yourself there. Be present, be calm, and be confident. So those are my testing material tips for all of you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trayvon. So, personally, in my opinion, the best material to bring to the test is knowledge. And so, if you're trying to get your knowledge together for the test, it's important that you study. So, some of the study resources we recommend include Competition University, Quizlet, our DECA Compete app, and practice exams. So, to go a little bit more in depth on this, Competition University is a Moodle-based app designed by a DECA alum that is that's sole purpose is to provide competitive DECA members with the resources they need to succeed. So Competition University is pretty special in the fact that it provides games, practice tests, and practice role plays. And because it has such intuitive, interactive features, it's debatably one of the best ways to study for your event. Unfortunately, it can be costly, so make sure you're able to afford it if you want to use it. And if you can't, there's a million other ways you can study, and so you shouldn't be turned off by that. So another thing that you can use is Quizlet. A lot of people discredit Quizlet because it's free and it's online and it's easy to access, and that's a mistake, because Quizlet is free, it's online, and it's easy to access. That means you can do it anytime, you can do it anywhere, and truly, some of the best DECA prep material is there because it's made by other DECA members who are serious about succeeding. Another great opportunity for studying is the DECA Compete app. So made officially by our DECA Inc., it provides practice tests in each of the different clusters. It has an option to give you a 10 question test, a 25 question test, a 50 question test, and a 100 question test. It's a great opportunity to study when you're on your commute to the various DECA conferences. I know when I was a freshman, I was going to Orlando. I spent the entire plane ride studying for my test, and it ended up showing in my results. And so another thing that you can look at, and I know our guest speaker tonight can attest to this, is practice exams. Although they may not be fancy, they truly do help, and it's exactly what you're going to be taking the day of the test, so might as well take some practice exams. Another thing that's important to realize is that your DECA advisor is a resource. Each DECA advisor has their own special tips for their members of their chapter. And so if you go up to your DECA advisor and tell them that you're very interested in succeeding in DECA, I'm sure they will get behind you and help you in any way they can. And so please reach out to your advisor and see how they can provide you with any assistance possible. So now we're going to have our wonderful guest speaker, Teja Swain, our future District 4-5 representative, talk a little bit about what it's like to succeed in testing and what you need to do so.
Yes, hi. My name is Teja Swain, and I'm the District 4-5 rep for this year. So the test is one of my stronger parts of DECA, and I have a pretty specific way of preparing for it. This may not work for everyone, but it's worked really, really well for me in the past. I've gotten on stage at nationals for the testing section. So there's really two parts to doing really well on your test. It's your strategy when you take the test, but the most important part is preparing for the test. And this might sound really, really cliche, but really it is true. The best way to study for your test is to study a little bit every day. And DECA, it makes it really easy because you know exactly when your competition is, and you have the exact copies of tests that you will be taking that day. So it makes it really, really easy to study. And I study almost exclusively using the practice tests. So your DECA advisor probably has so many different practice tests archived. And the really great thing about practice tests is that they have an answer key with detailed explanations of the answers, why the correct answer is the correct answer, and why the incorrect answer is the incorrect answer. So every night I try to devote 10 minutes to studying. about a month before states and nationals. So what I do is I block off 10 questions from the 100-question practice test, and I go through all of them and answer all of them just without using outside help or knowledge. And then what I do is I go through the practice test questions that I answered using the answer key. And if I got the question right, I just check the box and I move on. But if I got it wrong, I keep a special notebook just for DECA studying. And what I do is I mark the question number down and I write one little bullet point about why the answer I wrote was wrong. And I write another little bullet point about why the answer that was right. And it'll tell you all of that in the answer key explanation. And it doesn't have to be a very long note, but even the act of taking that small little note will probably keep it really cemented in your brain. And when you see a similar question on test day, it will be right there and you'll be able to answer that question really quickly and easily. Oftentimes you'll see the exact same questions repeated over and over again on practice tests, which makes it really easy to do well on your actual test when you've taken a lot of practice tests before, which is why that's the strategy that I use. So as Trayvon said before, most of the test is just general business management questions. So the real meat of the test is the 60% that is dedicated to your cluster. And the questions in those sections really separate the winners from the losers. And those questions are based on terminology. So doing the practice tests, and if you mark down why your answer was false, it usually involves a more precise definition of the terminology used in that question. And you'll remember that terminology whenever you see it in another question. You'll really remember what it is. And if you don't know any words, look them up and make a little note of that next to the question as well, because then you'll just remember it from then on. And try to do this just for 10 minutes right before you go to bed. Just use it to wind down at the end of your day. And when you go to sleep, your brain actually processes your information and puts it into your long-term memory. So if you do it right before bed, your brain will be ready to categorize it, and it'll be really easy for you to imprint that into your brain. So the other part of my strategy is on test day itself. So you've done your studying, you've studied 10 minutes a night for 30 days before the test, and you're there, you're done all the things, you've talked to another person, and you sit down and the test is in front of you. The best thing to do is to go through the test as smoothly and as evenly as possible. Don't let yourself stay on one question that you might have it narrowed down to 2 answers. If that happens, just put a question mark next to the question and move on. If you don't know the answer to a question automatically and right away, move on to the next one. It will only slow you down in the end. Try to eliminate answers as you go. When test takers make tests, they have the question and they have the right answer, and then they give you 3 wrong answers. They make wrong answers specifically to be wrong for a specific reason. So consider every answer before you pick the correct one wrong until proven right. And that way you go and eliminate the wrong ones, and then you prove that one is right. And if you go through the whole test, coming back to the ones that you didn't know right off the bat will usually make them a lot easier, because the test contains a lot of interrelated business concepts, and you can use parts of one question to help you logically fill out another question. So those are my test taking strategies, and they've proved really well in the past, and I hope they work well for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tejas. It seems you have a fan base in the chat. So moving on, we're going to talk about our business vocab word of the week, and we're going to let Trayvon talk a little bit about that.
Okay, guys. So like Max said, I'm going to go over our business vocab word of the week that we do every time we have the #Evolve competition prep series going. So our word of the week is competition-oriented pricing. So this is also known as market-oriented pricing, and this term pretty much involves basing a pricing method off of a competitor's prices instead of the actual consumer demand and what your company can afford. So pretty much this term can be used with test applications. So you can use this term as a resource not only to expand your already great vocabulary, but you can also relate it to different questions on the test. So this would relate more so to the pricing questions that you might run into on the DECA test. And it clearly explains a specific type of pricing strategy that companies use. So it just not only gives you that knowledge and that background, it gives you a greater vocabulary and an understanding that you could use towards those pricing questions or those selling questions that you might get. So this could definitely be a great resource and a great word that you guys can use for your test application. Back to you, Max.
All right, thanks, Trayvon. So now we are reaching the end of our presentation. So this is kind of just everybody works together. We talk a little bit. This is the fun part. So just some housework right now. We're going to talk about some of the state's information that you need to know if you're attending. So the state conference is February 22nd through 24th. It's coming right up, less than a month away. Pretty exciting. So the deadline for registration has passed, so unfortunately, if you haven't signed up, doesn't look like you're going to. But there's always next year, and we look forward to seeing you then. Our Member of the Month program is in full swing. If you have people in your chapter that you believe are outstanding members and deserve to be recognized, feel free to submit them. Also, for those of you who will be attending our state conference, our PA DECA Live program is coming back this year, which means all your family, friends, and anyone else who cares about you can live stream the entire conference. They can watch mini awards, they can watch the trophy ceremony, and they can watch you strut your stuff during the fashion show. If Trayvon wants to talk about anything, I'm gonna go with
Sure. Along with the DECA deadline, for those of you who had submitted your plan of action, you guys will know which level you had gotten at the state conference. Everything will be prepared for you guys. So whether you got C list, B list, or A list, we are so thankful for you guys participating in the plan of action. This is just a way for us to almost give you a template for your own program of work. And if you don't know what a program of work, it's pretty much a collection of goals and ideas you have for the year, and specifically how you go to carry these out. So we give you different things that you can use to be a successful chapter within Pennsylvania DECA. And those successful chapters that do this not only grow our membership, not only outreach to the community and gain more support for the organization we all love, but you guys overall make Pennsylvania DECA better. So thank you for all the members who participated in any of our programs, for all the members who will participate in the programs we have upcoming, like our PA DECA Live program, letting your parents and friends know. And just thank you for being so great this year. I've had a fantastic time, and we've gotten a lot done this year. And for our Member of the Month program, I just want to notify you Member of the Months are and just talk about it a little bit. So our December Members of the Month, we had co-members of the month this time around, are Samara Gonzalez from Monroe CTI DECA, as well as Cam Manko from Bethel Park High School. Both of them were outstanding DECA members, and they did a lot for the organization and PA DECA. So great. As well as Max said, you guys can still submit some of our, you could still submit a candidate for Member of the Month for January and February, as we will still be accepting submissions and selecting a member for January and February. So you just have to go on the PA DECA website, go under Student Resources, the Member of the Month tab, and then go to submit an application. And it's really straightforward. You put your contact information in, you put the student you're nominating their information in, as well as just answer 3 simple questions about them. And then you submit it, we look at it, and we'll let you know. And like Max said again, we have our PA DECA Live program. So just let your parents know, let your people know so they can see everything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So now is the most fun part of the stream. We've got some crowd questions because Teja's really had a turnout. So if you want to feel free to answer some of these questions. The only question that was not a joke that we received was, Tejas, how do you prepare for role plays? And that was coming from Roshni. So go ahead and answer that, Tejas, if you feel like it. Okay.
Thank you, Roshni. So I prepare for role plays. I call this the tent presentation method. So I have this paper right here, and if you just fold it in half, it forms a little tent. And basically, to start out, thinking about the role play, you have 5 KPIs for an individual role play. your KPIs are basically different points that you need to hit in the role play to get the judges to give you a good score. When the judge has their score sheet, they have mostly KPIs, and they rate you on how well you hit each of your KPIs in relation to the overall scenario. So if you mention the KPIs and use the terminology from the KPIs heavily in your role play, the judges are very likely to give you a high score, and they'll probably give you high scores in the miscellaneous categories, as it shows that you're really prepared and engaged with the role play question. So, for example, if I'm asking a question about how to design a internet social media marketing plan for a pet bathing company, there might be 5 different KPIs that relate to what is customer buying behavior. That's a really common one. What are different drawbacks to internet marketing? All of those different things. So I create one of these little 10 for each of the KPIs, and you use it kind of like a PowerPoint. You stack the folded in half sheets of paper on top of one another, and as you go through your role play, each KPI, you read it and go to the next one. And the title of each of those little 10 slides should be kind of a paraphrasing of the KPI, because it lets the judge show, it lets you show the judge that you really know what you're talking about, and it kind of makes it, it sounds mean to say this, but a little bit idiot proof. You know, the judges can't say, oh, you didn't hit that KPI if you use your slide and it says right there the exact wording of the KPI. So it makes it really, really easy for you to get those points. And then from there, each slide should, it's called the DECA method. Define, explain, connect, achieve. So first, with each KPI, you want to define the KPI in a short little bullet, put it on the slide, what it means, why it's relevant to this situation. Explain, define and explain. Then connect. You connect the KPI to the role play situation and explain how that KPI and that situation are interrelated and how it relates to your solution to the problem. That's where we get to the achieve part. Extra. When you think of achieving, you think of going above and beyond. So you want to go beyond connecting them. You want to use the connected terms to provide an exact solution to the problem relating to the KPI. And as you go through, the KPIs are usually sequential in order, and they're designed that if you follow this method, you can build up from an initial, like, just talking about the general principles of the idea to an end solution. So as you go, each one of your KPIs, from the first one on your role play sheet to the last one on your role play sheet, should build up to a final solution to your problem. And usually I include one extra tent presentation slide for that solution, just because sometimes the KPIs aren't as complete as they could be. And if you want to put in a little bit of extra flair or spice, which is always a really important thing to do, especially in competitive role plays like states and nationals, you can do that in that last non-KPI slide.
All right. Thank you, Tejas. 1 second. All right, here we go. So we only had one other question, and it was more of a basic question. It was just kind of explaining logistics of the test in general. And so we had a member of PA DECA ask us what night the test would be on during states. And so to them, I'd like to say it is on the first night of the conference. It will be that evening after you arrive, after dinner, after opening ceremonies. And so that's important to keep in mind. But otherwise, we don't really have that much else that we're doing tonight. So
Max, I just have one thing to add.
Yeah.
Typically they do it at 8 p.m., but you guys should be getting an agenda soon if you don't already have it. I know my advisor had gotten the agenda for the state conference, so just make sure to check in with your advisor. And another thing for the state's announcements, we will not be having a PA DECA app this year, so it's essential that you guys have that physical copy on you, or you take pictures of the different pages within that physical copy so you can map out what you're doing throughout the time at states. So the first night, really the only thing that's truly important is that test and opening session, dinner, that kind of stuff. It's just kind of getting you guys accustomed to everything. And then the second day is where we get into all the role plays and workshops and all the busy work. So that's all I have to say.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if nobody else has any further remarks, that is going to conclude our third episode of PA DECA #Evolve Competition Prep. I would like to extend a hearty thanks to everyone that tuned in today. And with that, I bid you adieu.